Awesome.
Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone here with us today, our guests and co-hosts, and welcome everyone tuning in or listening to this broadcast afterwards. My name is Malin. I'm the co-organizer of Stockholm Legal Hackers, and today I have my colleague Martin from Copenhagen with me. And we're joined by two guests today, because that's the role Linnea gets to play at today's event, which here in Stockholm we're not used to that, at least. But I want to start off with introducing you, Mads, and you get to do that yourself. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really short. My name is Mads. I'm an educated lawyer. I finished studying that for 5 years ago. Then I went into working with the biggest law firm in Denmark for a couple of years inside Bankruptcy. And then I founded 3 years ago the company Bella, which stands for Bankruptcy State Lawyers Legal Assistant, where we set out to automate a lot of these workflows we have inside bankruptcies. There's a lot of manual stuff we can do something about, and that's what we've been doing for the last 3 years. That's the really short introduction about me. We are in Denmark now, launched in Denmark. We launched in Sweden and Norway this year as well. So we are starting to expand into all the Nordic countries.
Exciting. And there we got the elevator pitch for Bella as well. And I'm sure we'll talk more about Bella later. But first, everyone's favorite Stockholm Legal Hackers organizer, Linnea, welcome to you too, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's very exciting to be on this part of the table. So, as you said, Malin, I'm Linnea. I'm the other co-organizer of Stockholm Legal Hackers. I am a student at Stockholm University with 1 year left to graduation, and I also work at Pactimize as a customer success representative. So that means that I work with contract automation and, of course, customer success. So that means, in short, that I help our customers using our tools in an optimized way. So think of it as a fusion of tech support, project manager, and teacher. And so let me do my elevator pitch of Pactimize. So Pactimize is a platform where business users can create contracts with pre-approved standard clauses, negotiate digitally with their counterparty, and sign the deal, all within the same platform.
Oh, that's a good elevator pitch. Are you sure you don't work on the sales side?
I definitely don't.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for being here and representing two very exciting companies. I mean, what we can see here is that obviously both of you have, or your companies have, this automation in common. Mads, do you want to just elaborate on that? What does automation mean for bankruptcy and for the law firms, which I'm assuming are your main customers?
Yeah, it's actually pretty basic. We're not talking about AI. We are also talking about AI, of course, but not really in the first part of our software. Once a company goes bankrupt, we need to register all the assets. When I did that, I took up my phone, went out to the business address and took a lot of pictures of all the assets, wrote it down in a note block, went back to my computer, entered it into an Excel sheet, and I have to sell that kind of assets to via auctions houses, get them evaluated by sales partners who will give us pre-evaluation of those assets. What are they worth? And you pretty much cannot do anything about that if you just take some pictures with your phone. So the first step here is just to create a super simple table. And you log into our platform, you register the assets in that platform, and then we have integrations to all these kind of sales companies and evaluation companies. We collect all that data and then we put it into some reports, which we share with the creditors online. Today we do it manually, fill these reports out inside Word, and a lot of that is done manually just by typing in it. So automation here is about the workflows, giving our lawyers some tools which they can use for registering assets, registering creditors. Creditors actually is a fun little, what can we call it, task. Fun. It's not fun at all. 5 years ago, before this really became a thing in Denmark, all the bankruptcies are published in what we call the Danish Law Gazette. It says this guy is, or this girl is the trustee of the estate, and then the creditors will write that partner an email, and that partner will get a lot of emails from creditors. So just doing a simple online form where we can send a link to the creditors, they go in and type the information in, and it will be created inside the table. That saves us so many much work inside our estates. Nothing about AI or fancy stuff. We're just talking about implementing some workflows that's done a little bit different, and then we can type it in via forms and stuff like that. Apps to register the assets, the debt. So basically, when we talk about automating, it's about workflows of the lawyers, collecting data, integrating to, in Sweden, Bolagsverket, in Denmark, CVR, and some of these business registration databases there are. So we can extract all of that information automatically. Again, a simple integration, not anything hard. It's APIs, and we can get all of that kind of stuff. But that's a manual task before they were using Bella. That's basically what we do when we say automation of workflows.
For sure. Welcome back. Welcome back, Linnea. Also,
Thanks.
Less frozen now. And yeah, so we just heard about Mads and Bella's this streamlined work and automation and efficiency that comes with it. That's a very, very common theme for Pactimize as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I really saw some common themes in what I heard of your presentation. So streamlining the workflows is also something that we at Pactimize do. So what we're doing is that we take contract templates, you know, those that you use in Word, and then you sort of search and replace all of the words with like XXX and date, whatever. That's very tedious, and it takes up a lot of time for the lawyers, since they are the only ones who are really allowed to go in and change the contract, so that nothing goes wrong. To create this platform for all your needs when it comes to contract drafting, negotiation, and signing for the business users. So not for the lawyers, but for people who are actually doing business. So we work with legal teams of these businesses to transform their contract templates into user-friendly questionnaires, so to speak, that non-lawyers can fill out to produce legally binding contracts without the help of and replace terms, but instead you fill out the questionnaire that automatically replaces these XXX or dates or things like that. So then the contract can be negotiated in our negotiation room with teams made out of business people, maybe a lawyer just for good measure, but basically we're empowering people who are actually doing business to do what they do.
Audience then is more the in-house counsel, I can imagine, and letting them do a lot of the legal work themselves. Mads, do you think could a legal counsel use or like in-house counsel use Bella this way, or non-lawyers use Bella, or do you have to know bankruptcy in order to do it?
Well, they could use it, and but they won't, because they will not get appointed as the rules are right now, at least in the Nordic countries. In Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, it's only lawyer that gets appointed. They have a huge debate. I will not go into that, because that's so hot topic right now, and everybody should stay out of it in Denmark. But there is a big discussion about should lawyers not be the only one being appointed. And as the rules are right now, lawyers are the only ones being appointed in bankruptcy estates in Denmark and Sweden and Norway. So everybody could use it, but you need to have some knowledge about it as well. You cannot just come as an outsider and know nothing about bankruptcy and then be able to do that kind of work. That would be like asking a football player to, I don't know, do your taxes. You would never do that, right?
I mean, if they're really good at math, I guess. But let's dig a little bit into that debate, though. You mentioned there is a debate in Denmark on who on if we should be able to appoint other professionals to this task of filing for bankruptcy, because I guess that's the task at hand here, essentially, with Bella. Now, is that debate fired up by the COVID crisis and the bankruptcies that followed it?
No. And
No.
First of all, it's not about filing. It's about what happens after you file for bankruptcy. The filing part is big in the United States, not in the Nordic. It's about everything else that happens after you file for bankruptcy. So all those task flows there. It's not true. I can tell you, all guys, there's not been more bankruptcies due to the pandemic. If you hear that, that's not true for Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. We have a really low rate of activity right now in bankruptcy, and that gives us all kind of other concerns about how do you sales in these times. Should it be easier for us? Well, we predicted that a year ago, but it's not happened like that. The corona health packages from the government is keeping more companies alive than actually should be compared to last year. So we have a really low activity right now. People are not sort of, what can we say, being stressed out by new bankruptcy states in general. So it's not creating any big demand right now. It's not changing any big kind of work behavior right now inside the bankruptcy departments. I would have predicted that if you asked me a year ago, and I did that into a board meeting we had a year ago. I actually just looked it up ahead of this meeting, but it has not turned out that way. Definitely not.
How about you, Linnea? Do you see any sort of shift towards more online? I'm thinking, since you're in this business of also putting negotiations online and so on, have you seen changes due to the pandemic?
Yes, I would say that, I mean, due to the pandemic, we have been forced to move our negotiations online. So in one sense, the COVID pandemic was like the perfect storm for our negotiation part of the platform. I mean, it's kind of like bad to think that the pandemic is a good thing, but you should also see like the light in the dark. So I believe that it has really shifted even like the most stubborn parties to transfer their negotiations online. So let's say, for instance, law firms who had to turn to digital workplaces in like a month. I believe that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't that they were actually forced to do that. So in one way, I think, yeah, sure, definitely.
Well, one other thing that I wanted to ask both of you about, you of course, you are sort of engaging with lawyers. I'm consciously choosing that term instead of selling to, because Mads is selling directly into law firms and lawyers working at law firms, whereas I guess Pactimize, it's businesses, but it's also lawyers involved in getting the system up and running and so on. So I wanted to hear both of your thoughts on what is special about having to engage with lawyers in selling or getting technology up and running. So I guess, Mads, what's your take on that? Not law firms necessarily, but just people with a legal background. What makes them different, if anything, as customers, users, so on?
I think it's super important to get the lawyers included in the work, at least what we are doing, again, because that is kind of like the end user. We do have the creditors in the bankruptcy states that can push forward some agendas. We have seen that with the banks in Denmark. It's had not happened in Sweden yet, but the banks are driving forward an agenda. I think the first initiative were in 2016, if I don't remember it wrongly, where the bank simply stated that we want to know more about what task have you actually been carried out. And then we saw the biggest law firm in Denmark launching a new portal where the creditors could log in. Where the reality are now, we are 5 years down the road, and it's not, nothing has really happened in that sense. We are all having some simple portals, but it's basic features on these portals, and it's not that much used. So for bankruptcy, it's definitely not client creditor driven. It's lawyer driven. It's the lawyers that needs to see profit margins. It's their work we need to do more fun, more easy, if we need to get them engaged. And that, I think, it's really, really important, at least for the Bella situation. I mean, really, in the beginning of the entire project, we created a co-creation panel. It's kind of my support hotline now, but the people are, instead of calling a support hotline, I have kind of trained the lawyers to tell me not how they're using our features, but how should we maybe change the features for them to understand it, because I don't want a big support department or anything like that. So for us in Bella, it's been super, super critical to have the lawyers close to us, talking with them even on a daily basis, learning about new features, because I could be building a software by myself, but I need those inputs ongoingly. Bella, it's a continuing project. It's not done yet. We will never be done. And that kind of talks back and forth. It's key for me for long-term successful relationship with our customers, I think.
Well, what makes it, if anything, is there anything special about lawyers in that sense, in having to engage with lawyers around that, as opposed to an accountant, as opposed to like a finance person? I guess it's hard for you because you're lawyer yourself, so it's kind of self-diagnosis in a sense. But what is there anything in particular that you need to keep in mind when you engage with people with that background?
Yeah, they don't understand tech. I mean, I can say it like that. I mean, I'm a really rare occasion. I know you and I have some shared friends. They are really rare breed as well. Lawyers in general, I think if any of my customers are listening now, I think they know that I have this opinion. But when we talk about new features, they never understand what I'm saying. Never. I have to draw up maps. I have to draw up designs, and then they understand it. But we need to get them to see some kind of features, and I think that's really, really critical when we build new features, and also for other startups that wants to work with law firms. We cannot just tell them their ideas; they will not get it. But if we just draw up some super simple PowerPoint slides or whatever, all of a sudden we get so many inputs that now we have to actually pick which one makes the most sense. But we need to, visualize it for them, because they cannot do that. They are trained lawyers and they should be lawyers. They are not visualization people, really. And I think that's the biggest part, actually.
Okay. And what about you, Lydia? Yeah. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, this is really about the things I do at my work at Pactimize, because as a customer success representative, part of my job is to educate our customers in our tools, because we can't just throw our tools at them and say, well, you figure it out. For new colleagues and our customers about how to use them. And it's a wide range. I mean, lawyers, after all, we're humans. We're humans, just like everyone else. So there will be like people who are super interested and gets it like right away. They are power users and just builds their own contract in no time. And then we have the people who are like, I don't understand. Can you please talk slower? Can you simplify this? Maybe, like you said, Mads, could you maybe draw? Could you show me? So it varies a lot. And so I don't think it's like a common denominator for lawyers to all be bad at tech or good at tech. It's really individual.
I mean, for sure, just like it's individual for all professions, whether or not you're good or bad at tech. I was curious, Linnea, just because Mads tells us here that they have to visualize a lot for the lawyer. If you have any comments on that, because I know you do like the visualization part.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to workshops, I've held them mostly digital, because I was hired like 2 months before the outbreak of COVID. So, but what I usually do is I share screen. I use like either my own build or their build, and then I just show how to put these questionnaires together. So like you take a little piece of this and a little piece of that, but I don't save it. So I kind of like combine visualizing with learning by doing. So they have to repeat the steps that I'm making on screen. So I don't do anything like for them, but I show them exactly how they're going to do, instead of just talking, because I get easily like no structure at all and just floats away with comments on everything. So
Any comments on that, Mads?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to distinguish between making some mock-ups and actually be building the features. It sounds a little bit linear that you are having a next step compared to what I'm doing. I'm really just drawing up the slides, and then we're talking about, can you imagine it based on that? We don't build any features when we're talking about with the law firms, because then we would end up in fees for development costs just to be building something they can click in. It's not simply not worth it, because we are changing it so much over the course from what we're showing in the first time to what they actually end up in. So if anyone is doing this, I would definitely recommend just draw up the slides, talk with the law firms again, get a lot of inputs from them. Ongoingly, not be building anything unless they actually understand what we have drawn up.
I'm curious, Mads, because you're saying now that you're expanding into Sweden and Norway, and of course there's one case there where you're obviously debuckling this whole legal tech isn't scalable myth, then we can call it. But I'm curious if there are any regional differences you see. Like we just said, lawyers don't really get the techie bits, but are some more intuitive users than others, in your experience?
I think the average level of tech knowledge is pretty much the same in Denmark and Sweden, based on the lawyers, at least from what I experience. For bankruptcies, well, we can scale into a new country just by tapping into some kind of a public authority that can provide us with the data. The rest is the same. It's all about getting assets, knowing about the assets, knowing about the depth, the workflows. It's not like we coded Danish laws into the software. We were pretty clear about that from the beginning. We coded in the workflows, and the workflows can then be replicated on each of the other jurisdictions. So yes, legal tech can definitely be scalable. It should be scalable into other countries. We should never code something that is just for one jurisdiction, in my opinion. And if we do that, well, the lawyers should have the same kind of skill set around at least the Nordic countries. We are a lot similar. And that's the reason why we didn't go into Germany before we went into Sweden. And that's because the skill set in Germany, sorry if there are Germans listening, it's low inside the legal sphere. You guys are still faxing. It cannot be automated. But across the Nordic countries, it's the same, more or less.
That's really, really curious. Linnea, go ahead.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Mads, that you shouldn't code in like a jurisdiction or one type of law, especially because that really reduces scalability. And that's what we do too. So we're in Sweden and Norway, Denmark, Finland, since we have a deal with If Nordic, but we're also in Germany, and that is because we don't. We at Pactimize, we don't make contracts for people, so our customers have to bring their own contracts, and then we can automate them. But we don't really do anything inside the text, just because we don't have like skill sets for every country in the world. So I think it's very important to make sure that your product is as versatile as possible in order to find more markets.
I think what you're saying now is the key for every legal tech vendor, and that's exactly the same what we're doing. It's just to draw it back, because we could, when you send out a letter to the bank that this company went bankrupt, it's kind of like the same sphere we're in here. It's about merging up some templates, sending it out. We don't draft the templates. We have absolutely no idea I do know what they write, but in general, they can set up whatever they want to write inside the templates, those documents. They can do whatever. We're automating the workflows here, and that's the important thing, right? If we had built a tool, that was my idea originally. That's why I'm saying it again. Originally, when I pitched this to our investor, it was about predefining some templates, selling those templates included. That would be so much easier. But then came the different needs from the different law firms, and then we needed to create this template generator. And then we can launch into different jurisdictions, because then the customers themselves are throwing it in. As not some onboarding in that, but that's kind of the key here when you want to scale out.
I think that's a very interesting point, and I think a lot of legal tech vendors probably out there agree with that. And also, I can just share from my side, from the law firm perspective, you can really tell which vendor thought about making the product versatile, and which vendor started very much locally and then are trying to branch out sort of on an ad hoc basis by going with the flow, and it's not. It can work, of course, but it's not always the best way to go on about it.
So I wanted to ask, we're seeing a huge boom in legal tech at the moment. I mean, it seems that there isn't really a day where you don't see like one or two new companies pop up, and that's of course a positive thing, I guess. You can assume that it's a positive thing, but of course, when you see booms like that, where also a lot of capital is being put into it, you also run the risk of a huge bust at some point. And quite frankly, I'll say this for my own account, but I've been quite amazed at some of the valuations that we've seen recently, especially because some of the technology that seems to be launched out there as novel technology seems very close to, for instance, old-fashioned contract lifecycle management systems that have existed for 25 years and so on. Or it's technology within novel areas, but the innovation step, so to speak, is minimal. Like it's a very small thing really that you're solving. So your thoughts on that, Linnea and Mads? Maybe Linnea first.
I think that it's important to stand up because, as you said, there are many people or companies that are producing things that may seem similar. So I believe it is crucial to focus on something that sets you apart from the competition. So let's say, for instance, that you have a document automation program, then maybe find something that is like something that people haven't really thought about before. And I believe that expert knowledge, one of our founders is a lawyer. He's been a lawyer for quite some time compared to me. So he knows about the struggles of contract negotiation. He knows that, oh, well, this takes a lot of time, and then I have to take a flight to Singapore, and that is a lot of carbon dioxide straight out into the atmosphere, and it's going to take a lot of time. I will be tired. Like all of these problems, he knows by heart because he's lived through them several times. So being an expert on the problems allows you to really make solutions that are effective to solve these problems. You really need to what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, and really define it, because then I think that you can really set yourself apart from generic solutions. If we're talking about how to stand out in a legal tech boom.
I think a part of your question, Martin, is also is there too many money flowing into the legal tech sphere? If Marlin, if you could provide some numbers on how often you were called up by a new legal tech vendor, I would imagine it's 1 or twice per day, probably, right? Every single day. That's what I learned from others sitting in the same position as you. It's a lot. There's so many new tech coming up, and I think Linnea, your market will be the first one to track if people want to learn. Are we busting, or are we making something big? You are so many inside contract automation in that sphere. I think it's so hard to stand out as well. For my own market, well, it's more practice management, it's task management flow. And we are also branching out, not just from bankruptcy. We will still keep better, of course, as our core features, but we will also investigate other kind of features. But yes, there are many companies arising right now. I think I sometimes use the term legal tech zombies. It's nothing specific for legal tech. It's just in general. We have so many companies that right now have big money coming into the companies. They will be kept alive for way too long, in my opinion. There's probably some investors disagree. But they will be kept too much alive, in particular also because, Marlin, you guys are not providing quick enough answers to the legal tech vendors that comes to you. It takes 9 months to sell to a law firm. That's a really, really long, at least for me. Maybe somebody of you is better. But that's the sales time for me. And if it takes that long time for you guys to give just the feedback, you encounter us, right? To keep on developing, you will entertain in CEOs of these companies, these startups, and we will see a lot of these startups trying to reach a final agreement, and then after 9 months, we will then learn the right answer. Could we make it or not? I'm actually quite concerned that for a lot of these companies that are in the market right now have too many money being raised and too little response from the law firms to actually see and what can we call it, an equilibrium, I think it's called in English. It's not there yet, and we will see a lot of company going under in, let's say, 5 years. But it's normal for a new business segment as legal tech. It's not new at all, but like many of these companies are. So yes, there are too many money flowing in, and the valuation is, I don't understand half of it as well. really don't understand it.
And I mean, another concern that I see as well, just to double down. Yes, law firms are slow on the response times. Our feedback loops are very long, usually very slow, for a good reason. Sometimes, you know, we are the risk averse ones that we have to go and dig into this. But I'm also afraid of sort of the counter action for that. You know, when we start to hear, when our clients start to push us to, oh, try this software, try those company. I've heard this company is very good. That can be exhausting really quickly. And yeah, if the client says we should look into something, we're probably going to do it. But I don't know if, you know, the customer here knows what's best for us and our lawyers. And I'm a bit concerned when it switches to that we're sort of pressured to adopt or buy software that we're not then going to use.
Yeah, well, but that's exactly the issue, right? We have a lot of new tech coming in. We have slow decision makers inside the law firms, and that's where I also see this risk of having a lot of these zombie companies. Those two effects combined together. I really see an issue there. I can tell you that in this form as well. In my original business plan, when I pitched my case to my investors, I've been in the legal in the legal industry for a couple of years. I'm so off. I was so off in regards to revenue predictions, in regards to sales cycles, and I thought I had a lot of knowledge about how quick they could buy. I mean, I'm literally so much off in regards to that. We're still doing good. It's still a success. It's not about that, but I'm still a lot off from what I predicted back then. And that's because of slow decision processes indeed. And it's a niche market, right? We cannot really sell to others.
Now, I think if I may just make two observations here. I think the phenomenon that Marlon talks about, I sometimes call it like the in-flight magazine phenomenon, where, you know, some boss somewhere reads about some technology in the in-flight magazine and comes back and we have to try this, right? We must have this thing because otherwise everything will end. So, and it's a very real thing, and it's not just in this space, but I think it becomes even more devious when the pressure comes from outside the organization through clients, right? Because lawyers haven't really learned how to say no to their clients in any way and just politely dismiss something. I think also another thing I wanted to say is that it's Mads sort of mentioned a little bit AI as part of a future plan and so on, but it's also very interesting that now we have two legal vendors who neither of them have any kind of real focus on AI or blockchain or any other like hype words in that sense, right? And I think that's probably a good sign that it's a sign of a sort of burgeoning maturity that we can actually have the self-confidence to put products out there and talk about our companies without using these words. So that was just my point.
A quick comment on that, if I may. We are focusing on AI. We do have algorithms. It's just 10% of the software. There's so many else. 3 years ago, when I made my first sale, we had 7 law firms we were negotiating a lot with. Martin knows some of them. And I can tell you, it took me after we have agreed, they've been a part of this co-creation process. But even after that, they know all about the features we had. I think it was 3 months intensively negotiation about who owns the data. And that's only 3 years ago, because everybody was pumping around AI is the new stuff. And I'll keep telling them It's 10% of the software. Forget about it. It's not going to be crucial. We cannot do anything alone. It's way too little a market. Today, it takes up 0% of the negotiation time. 3 years ago, it took 3 months per company I was negotiating with. That's insane.
Yeah.
And today, nothing. So there's really been a shift over the last 2 to 3 years, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank God. Honestly.
But I think also being honest about what let's just say that you do use machine learning, the term that I prefer because it's very much closer to the truth. But you do use it, but you're honest about it, and you're honest about its capabilities. It's not gonna like just handle all of your bankruptcy matters automatically or anything. I think you do some. If I'm not mistaken, Mads, you do some pattern detection in transactions and stuff like that, right? With it,
yeah.
Which is like the most obvious use case ever, and it's a solid area to use machine learning in because you're perfectly within sort of a very confined space and very regular data and so on. So and that's how you're supposed to use it, not by like telling people that it will make whole swaths of work go away from one day to another and stuff like that, right? So,
Linnea, any takes on using hype technology just for the sake of hype? Because I don't think you guys at Pactimize have any machine learning, or correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, not yet. I'm not sure if we're going to use that ever. I mean, there's always a possibility, but I think it's more important to actually focus on what is the problem we're trying to solve rather than just saying that we have AI, because having AI does not equal using AI. So, because that's a thing that when I was at a student event, totally unrelated, but then it was the most important that they had this AI program instead of actually using it, just so that they could say to like students that, oh, we're so cool, we're so modern because we have AI. So I think it's more important to have like a real problem to solve rather than like trying to sell people snake oil.
For sure. That actually brings me to maybe one of our last questions or topics for today. We'll see where you take this. Let's say it's the fact that we're talking about. There's often so much talk about starting with the low-hanging fruit. There's so much low-hanging fruit. There's so much low-hanging fruit left, and then there's also this a bunch of talk about daring to be boring and not making these snake oil products just for the sake of snake oil products. Linnea, I can start with you since you're here on my screen. Any thoughts on like Pactimize attitude towards being sort of true to where you're coming from and the problem you're solving, and not giving in to maybe these higher hanging fruits or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, our focus is like always on the business, always on the users. So for instance, when I'm building our questionnaires, it's always about how do I make a person who doesn't know like anything about law, they don't have a law degree, how do I make them understand what a tag-along clause is without them being educated in company law? So that's really like the core of everything we do. We want contracts to be business relationships, not like weapons in courts, the I'll see you in court attitude. We want to get rid of that. We want it to be transparent. We want to instill trust between the parties because we want their business to succeed. We don't want them to go to arbitration or go to court. We want the businesses to do business because that's what they're for. So that's at the core of everything we do.
Right. Mads, any takes on low-hanging fruit?
Bella was originally named 3 years ago. Bankruptcy state lawyer Lex artificial. And as Martin was saying, we were focusing on AI inside bank account statements and how we could automate that stuff. We even coined it now ASA because AI is too weird. It's just Advanced Statistical Analysis, ASA. Today, Bella is called Bankruptcy State Lawyers Legal Assistant, so we took away Lex Artificial and coined it Legal Assistant because it was taking, as I said before, way too many energy for me to explain this little part of the software. So much energy explaining what does it do, but we have 90% of workflows, sending out letters to the banks, to the creditors, automating that initial stuff, extracting data from the Danish authorities for business registration, CBR. All of that data, that's low-hanging fruit. Every single of our workflow, which we automate in the last 3 years, has been about the low-hanging fruit. If I were pitching only Bella, as it originally were called, to our investor, they would have said no. I know that, they told me. But because I changed focus to low-hanging fruits, then they were interested, because that's where we need to go first. Cannot teach lawyers to use AI if they don't even know how to use anything aside from Word and Outlook, right? It's pretty basic, actually.
Right. So it's more about, you can't run before you can crawl type of thing here. I think we have a question from our audience from YouTube. If anyone watching hasn't seen, there is a chat function you can use and communicate with us. Martin, do you want to take it up?
Sure thing. So the question here is what initiatives would you advise law firms, I guess Linnea, you can interpret that as businesses, to take to have more success with implementation of new tech solutions? Mads, if you want to go first, I know, for instance, one part of implementing Bella is, I think for all customers, also integrating to their matter management or system. So maybe your thoughts on that, how to be successful on that thing and adopting Bella or legal tech in general. What mindset should I show up with as a customer?
Yeah, I don't know if our case is really the general thing. And we integrate with a lot of software, document matter handling, financial softwares. Actually, we have 3 different kind of software we integrate to every time. And when I show up and tell you, I actually remember your reaction, Martin. We were talking together back then 3 years ago, and you told me you cannot do that in a day. And I was like, we can do it. It's not that hard. It's about an SQL extraction and stuff like that. There's so much focus from purchasing side of it about the tech integration, and of course that should be a part of it. We don't charge anything for that, so it's not really a true matter for us. But learning how to do task management inside a software, if anybody knows Jira, Trello, Monday, like that, lawyers don't use that. We use sticky notes, we use pen and paper, and going from that transition into an online tool, insane. I'm talking with some of our users right now, 2 years after they started using our tools, they still don't know how to do it. And it's not because it's hard, it's just because they don't really want to learn it. A lot of them won't, but the biggest transition from the lawyer side, and we know that, is to get your users actually to use the new tools. There are so many new tools coming in. It's so smart, but law firms and us, also from our vendor side, we need to be able to provide you guys with proper support, proper training, because you guys don't do it. Sorry, Marlon, you guys really don't do it right. Maybe you do. I know a lot of law firms that don't do that. It's like, here's the new tech solution, have fun. And then that's it. So we as a tech vendors need to take on that position, and we need to take that into consideration once we give offers, because otherwise we are doomed pretty much, and we will get terminated after a year. So that's a really crucial part, training the organization, and we probably need to take that on as vendors, not the law firms.
No, but I mean, speaking of law firms here, I mean, what is part of it and what you can't solve for the law firm is that they do need to set aside the time to learn these tools. They might be very easy, they might be all iPad-y, like and so on, but this idea of investing a little bit of time in a structured fashion into your tools and the stuff that you use to do your day-to-day work, that mindset in my mind is one of the big failures on parts of law firms, at least. And the hourly rate is like the culprit here, right? Because anybody can do the math. Like it's like 3,500 times X hours to learn this new tool, right? And and we have to get away from that, and we have to be prepared to make the investments in racing up to the next level.
Martin, we only have 15 minutes. We can't go into the billable hour.
Okay, so I'll stay away from the billable hour. Okay, Linnea, what's your thoughts on what can one do as what initiatives should customers take to be more successful with technology implementations?
I definitely agree with taking the time, because I believe that it's a very big misconception that legal tech is this sort of solve it all, it will fix it overnight, we don't really have to do anything because it's just this magic thing that someone pulled out of a hat. So it takes time, it takes work, but so taking time to actually learning it, that's step one. Step two is approaching it with humility. So admitting, because lawyers per general is a proud breed. I think we could agree on that we're kind of being taught that we're always right in law school, and then it just sort of follows us out when we graduate. But admitting that maybe this is hard for me, I need help, and that takes a lot of humility. That's not easy. But if you go in with that mindset and ask the customer success representative for help, I don't understand this, could you please take half an hour and explain this to me? I would say, I would love to. I usually end my emails with, if there's anything, any questions, anything you want from me, just let me know and I will make time as soon as possible. So like you said, Mads, educating, that's probably on the vendor's side, because we know our product the best. So educating, but the customer needs to be prepared to be educated too, because if you don't want to learn, well, you're not going to learn.
And I think that really brings a really good conclusion to this conversation. Today I'm going to round off a little bit early so people can get their coffee for their next meeting, which I'm sure they have at 1. And to say that's really, once again, we're coming from a legal tech discussion to, I feel, more of a culture discussion. If we're going to be ready to learn at law firms and prepare and enable our lawyers to learn, which, Mads, we do, so don't give me this attitude. I'm joking. We can talk later. We have one more question, which you can answer really quickly. It's also coming from YouTube, and the question is: do you see consolidations coming to the industry soon? We saw it in the late 90s in accounting software, for example. I was born in the late 90s, so was Linnea. So excuse us for not knowing. So Linnea, if you want to take a pass on this one, that's fine. And Mads and Martin, any comments on that one?
I was born in the 80s, so I also cannot tell too much about it. What I can say is that we experienced that also in Denmark in the legal industry. We had a lot of different softwares at the end of the 1990s, beginning of 2000, where we saw a lot of these. We have 3 major companies now in Denmark running practice management softwares, and before that we had a lot of more different smaller stuff coming out on these new adventures, the computers we had. But yes, it will become, I had to keep it short, yeah, we will see a lot of consolidation, or we will see too high egos. A lot of us are lawyers. We are learned, as you said before, Linnea, to be right. I think it would be hard to consolidate startups with lawyers on the board. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see, but either it's going to be consolidation or bankruptcies for a lot of the startups. I don't see any way around that. All
right, Martin, any final comment on that?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing it. I mean, there are in the US, we are already seeing people buying up. We are seeing alliances being formed, which could be interpreted as precursors to actual mergers and so on. So I think it's inevitable, and I think it's going to be much quicker than what we saw in accounting. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you everyone for watching this and for your questions, and for everyone watching afterwards as well. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to your local Legal Hackers chapter, and we'll make sure to find the correct person to answer that. Next week we will have our friends from Latvia who are thinking about starting their chapter joining for a talk about the legal tech scene in their home country. So we'll tick off one more of the Baltics. And on the 4th of May, Martin, Linnea, and I will be back for talking AI. So we'll just dig deep into that hype with two people that I think will not and has never not given in for the hype. Yeah, Martin is showing the AI for Lawyers book.
Yeah.
Who's
so
author?
it's one of the authors, Noah Weisberg of Kira, will be one of the guests. So look forward to that. And
Anna Ronkainen, research in AI and law for 20 plus years, will join us as well. So
and creator of Trademark Now, which was one of the first sort of real machine learning type legal tech applications.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting conversation. But for now, thank you so much, Linnea. Thank you so much, Mads, for joining us. Hope to see you, Mads, later on in this context. So nice to meet you. And Linnea, I'll see you in, I think, 5 minutes.
See you in class.
See you in class. Right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at the next digital lunch. Bye.